A desperate agreement. Olivia Vega's fingers trembled as she counted the bills spread across her kitchen table. The harsh fluorescent light flickered above her, casting shadows that matched her mood. $342. That's all she had left after paying this month's portion of her mother's medical bills. Not enough for rent, certainly not enough for the next round of treatment. She pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the worn linoleum floor. The apartment was quiet, except for the distant sound of her mother's labored breathing from the bedroom. Stage 4 ovarian cancer had ravaged Elena Vega's body, leaving her a shadow of the vibrant woman who had raised Olivia alone after her father abandoned them when she was just 7. "There has to be another way," Olivia whispered to herself, running her hands through her dark curls. Her second job as a night bartender hadn't been enough. The payday loan she'd taken out was coming due. The hospital was threatening to stop treatment unless she made a substantial payment by the end of the month. Her phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with a message from her best friend, Jasmine. "Did you see the email?" he responded. Olivia's heart stuttered. 3 days ago, in a moment of desperation after reading about him in a business magazine, she had emailed Marcus Reed, founder of Horizon Technologies. She had offered to clean his offices, be his driver, anything for extra money. It had been a shot in the dark, one she'd regretted the moment she hit send. With shaking hands, she opened her email. There it was, from mreedyhorizontech.com. But the contents weren't what she expected. "Miss Vega, I have a proposition that might solve both our problems. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m., Horizon Tower, 44th floor. Come alone." The next day, wearing the only professional outfit she owned, a navy blue dress she'd bought for job interviews, Olivia stood in an elevator that cost more than her yearly salary. The doors opened to reveal a sleek reception area where a polished woman led her directly to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marcus Reed stood with his back to her, a silhouette against the brilliant skyline. When he turned, Olivia's breath caught. The magazine photos hadn't captured the intensity of his gaze or the sharp angles of his face. At 35, he had the confidence that came with building a tech empire from nothing. "Ms. Vega," he said, his voice as cool and precise as the cut of his tailored suit. "Thank you for coming." "Your email mentioned a proposition," she said, proud that her voice remained steady. He gestured to a chair and sat across from her. "I'll be direct. I need a wife." Olivia blinked. "Excuse me." "A temporary one. 6 months, perhaps a year." He slid a folder across the glass desk. "My company is about to merge with Sullivan Enterprises. Their CEO is old-fashioned, values family. My reputation as a—" He paused. "Workaholic bachelor isn't helping negotiations." "And you think getting married will help?" Olivia asked incredulously. "A stable marriage suggests stability in business. It's simple psychology." His eyes a steel. Gray assessed her. "You need money for your mother's cancer treatment. I'm prepared to offer $2 million. Half now, half when our arrangement concludes." The air seemed to vanish from the room. "How did you know about my mother?" "I had you investigated after receiving your email. I know about the medical debt, the second job, the payday loan." His tone wasn't unkind, merely factual. "This would solve your problems, and mine. You want me to pretend to be in love with you? I want you to sign a contract and play a role. Love isn't necessary, just convincing public appearances." He leaned forward. "Your mother could have the best care at Princeton Medical, no more county hospital." Olivia's mind raced. The amount he offered would cover all the medical bills and secure her mother's treatment for years. It was more money than she could hope to earn in a decade. What exactly would this entail? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Living in my home. attending events as my wife, maintaining appropriate appearances. The contract includes privacy clauses and terms for dissolution. He checked his watch. You have 24 hours to decide. As Olivia left the building, clutching the folder containing a contract that could save her mother's life in exchange for her own, she wondered if she had just been offered salvation or made a deal with the devil himself. Cold mansion, colder hearts. The Reed estate sprawled across 5 acres in the most exclusive neighborhood outside the city, a modern fortress of glass and stone that seemed to grow from the hillside itself. Olivia stood in what was now supposedly her bedroom, larger than her entire apartment, staring at the designer clothes that had appeared in the closet overnight. Everything in her size, everything perfect for the role of a tech mogul's wife. "Mrs. Reed," a voice called from the doorway. Olivia flinched at the title. Teresa, the housekeeper, stood with hands clasped before her. "Mr. Reed asked me to inform you dinner will be served at 7. He has also left this for you." She placed a small velvet box on the dresser. "Thank you," Olivia murmured. When the door closed, she approached the box like it might bite. Inside lay an engagement ring and wedding band set that could pay for a small island. The diamond caught the fading sunlight, scattering rainbows across the wall. The wedding had been a clinical affair just 2 days ago. A justice of the peace, Marcus's lawyer, and Jasmine as her witness. No celebration, no romance, just signatures on legal documents and a photographer to capture fabricated smiles for the press release. Olivia had signed everything: prenuptial agreements, confidentiality clauses, behavior clauses. Her life was now governed by a 40-page contract. At least, her mother was already benefiting. This morning, she'd been transferred to Princeton Medical Center's private wing. The doctors were optimistic about a new treatment protocol. "Small sacrifices," Olivia whispered, sliding the rings onto her finger. They felt heavy, like shackles. Dinner was a silent affair in a dining room that could seat 20. Marcus sat at the head of the table, Olivia to his right, with 3 empty chairs between them. He worked on his tablet while eating methodically, barely acknowledging her presence. Olivia pushed salmon around her plate, appetite non-existent. "You should eat," Marcus said without looking up. "We have the Sullivan dinner tomorrow. I need you energetic." "I'm not hungry." "The contract stipulates maintaining appearances. That includes health." Olivia set her fork down with a clatter. "Is there a clause about treating me like a human being rather than a commodity?" That made him look up, grey eyes narrowing slightly. "This is a business arrangement, Miss Vega. You agreed to the terms. It's Mrs. Reed now, isn't it? At least in public." She stood, napkin falling to the floor. "I'll maintain appearances, Mr. Reed, but I won't be commanded like staff." She left him staring after her, the first crack in his composed facade. The Sullivan dinner proved to be a test of Olivia's acting abilities. Housed in a private room of an exclusive restaurant, the event gathered key executives from both companies and their spouses. Olivia wore a burgundy dress from her new wardrobe, hair swept up to reveal the diamond earrings that matched her rings. "You clean up well," Marcus murmured as they entered, his hand resting at the small of her back. For public consumption, his tone was almost affectionate. "You sound surprised," she whispered back, smiling for anyone watching. Pleasantly so. Throughout dinner, she felt Edward Sullivan's assessing gaze. The 60-something CEO had brought his third wife, a former model barely older than Olivia. After introductions, Sullivan had taken Marcus aside, and though she couldn't hear their conversation, the approving clap on Marcus's shoulder suggested her presence was having the desired effect. "How did you two meet?" Mrs. Sullivan asked, leaning forward with practiced interest. Olivia froze momentarily before recovering. They hadn't prepared a story. "Through a charity event," Marcus interjected smoothly, returning to her side. His hand covered hers on the table, warm and secure. Olivia was coordinating fundraising for cancer research. I was immediately taken with her dedication. How romantic, Mrs. Sullivan cooed. Marcus donated generously, Olivia added, finding her voice. Though I suspect it was to get my phone number. The table laughed, and Marcus's thumb stroked across her knuckles. The gesture seemed unconscious, and for a moment the pretense felt almost real. Later that night, as their driver took them home, Marcus broke the silence. "You performed well." "Thank you for the glowing review," Olivia replied, watching raindrops trace patterns on the window. Sullivan seemed pleased. He was. "The merger discussions are progressing faster now." Olivia nodded, exhaustion settling over her. The constant performance was draining. At home, as they walked up the grand staircase to their separate bedrooms, Marcus paused. "Your mother's doctors called my office today. The new treatment is showing promising results." Olivia stopped, one hand on the banister. "They did. I've arranged for weekly updates." He seemed uncertain for the first time since she'd met him. "I thought you would want to know." "Thank you," she whispered, genuinely touched by the gesture. He nodded once, then continued up the stairs. "Good night, Olivia." It was the first time he'd used her first name. Days turned into weeks. Olivia established a routine. Mornings visiting. Her mother at the hospital, afternoons learning about Marcus's business for inevitable social questions, evenings often spent at functions hanging from his arm like an expensive accessory. They performed their roles perfectly in public. The devoted couple, the successful businessman who had finally found balance, the charitable wife who humanized him. But in private, the mansion remained cold. Marcus worked constantly, often not returning until late. Olivia wandered the empty rooms like a ghost, speaking more to Teresa than to her supposed husband. One night, unable to sleep, Olivia ventured to the kitchen for tea. She was surprised to find Marcus there, suit jacket discarded, tie loosened, staring at a glass of amber liquid. "Sorry," she murmured, turning to leave. "Stay," he said, the words somewhere between command and request. "There's enough water for two." As she made her tea, an uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "Difficult day?" she finally asked. "Sullivan is pushing for more concessions." He swirled his drink. "The merger might fall through." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" His eyes met hers, searching. "Your contract payment doesn't depend on its success." "That doesn't mean I want you to fail." She wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "Contrary to what you might think, I don't view this as just a transaction anymore. We're connected now, however artificially." Something shifted in his expression, but before he could respond, his phone rang. With an apologetic glance, he answered and stepped out, leaving Olivia alone with cooling tea and the lingering question of what he might have said. "Thawing barriers, a company retreat," Olivia repeated, looking up from her book as Marcus stood in the doorway of the sunroom. 3 months into their arrangement, they had established an uneasy coexistence, orbiting each other like distant planets. 4 days at the Lake Azure Resort, Marcus confirmed, hands in his pockets. Sullivan suggested it, team building before finalizing the merger. He shifted his weight, an unusual display of discomfort from someone normally so controlled. "Your presence is expected." Olivia closed her book. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning. 8 sharp." He hesitated. "Pack for outdoor activities." Sullivan is enthusiastic about nature. The resort was breathtaking, luxurious cabins nestled among pine trees overlooking a crystal blue lake. Their accommodation stood slightly separated from the others, offering privacy while maintaining proximity to the group. Inside, Olivia froze at the sight of the single king-sized bed dominating the bedroom. "I can take the sofa," Marcus offered, following her gaze. "Don't be ridiculous," she replied, setting down her bag. "The bed is large enough. We're adults." That night they lay rigid on opposite sides, an invisible boundary between them. Olivia listened to Marcus's measured breathing, wondering if he was as aware of her presence as she was of his. "Your mother's latest scan showed improvement," he said suddenly into the darkness. Olivia turned toward his silhouette. "You're still getting updates? I told you I would. Thank you." She paused. "Why did you really choose me, Marcus? Surely there were more suitable candidates for this arrangement." The silence stretched so long she thought he might not answer. "Your email," he finally said. "Most people approach me wanting something for nothing. You offered to work, and your background check showed integrity. No matter how desperate you were, you never crossed ethical lines." Until agreeing to a fake marriage, she pointed out, "Is it fake if it legally exists?" His voice held a note she couldn't identify. "The purpose may be unconventional, but the marriage is real." Before she could respond, he turned away. "We should sleep. Sullivan has scheduled a 7 a.m. hike." The next morning brought clear skies and forced socialization. 12 executives and their partners gathered for what Sullivan called a gentle nature walk, but was actually a demanding trail up the mountainside. Olivia, who had maintained her fitness despite recent life changes, kept pace easily. Marcus, she noticed with surprise, struggled after the first hour. "You okay?" she asked quietly when they paused for water. "Fine," he replied curtly, but his face was flushed, breathing labored. Edward Sullivan clapped Marcus on the shoulder. "City living's made you soft, Reed. Good thing you've got a strong wife to keep you in line." He winked at Olivia. "My Jennifer used to drag me hiking every weekend when we first married. Best shape of my life." As they continued upward, Olivia noticed Marcus falling behind. The group had spread out, some pushing ahead while others lingered to photograph views. Without drawing attention, she slowed her pace to match his. "You don't need to wait for me," he muttered. "What kind of devoted wife would I be if I abandoned you?" She teased, then grew serious, seeing his pallor. "Marcus, are you ill?" He stopped, leaning against a tree. "Childhood asthma, usually not an issue, but the altitude." "Why didn't you say something?" She reached for his arm. "We should head back." "And confirm Sullivan's opinion that I'm weak?" "No." Determination hardened his features, but his breathing remained ragged. "There's nothing weak about knowing your limits," Olivia argued, then softened her tone. "Here, lean on me. We'll go slowly." To her surprise, he accepted, allowing her to support some of his weight as they navigated the trail. They walked in silence, his arm around her shoulders, her arm around his waist. It was the closest they'd been since their staged wedding photos. "My father," Marcus said after several minutes, "believed admitting weakness was unforgivable. Even as a child, I wasn't allowed to acknowledge the asthma." "Mind over matter, Marcus," he mimicked bitterly. Olivia squeezed his side gently. "Sounds like he was compensating for his own insecurities." "Perhaps." He glanced at her. "Your father left when I was 7, she finished. Mum said he couldn't handle responsibility. Then he missed watching an extraordinary woman grow up." The words hung between them, sincere and unexpected. Olivia felt warmth spreading through her chest that had nothing to do with physical exertion. That evening, the group gathered around a massive bonfire. Olivia sat beside Marcus on a log bench, their shoulders touching. His breathing had returned to normal hours ago, but something between them had shifted, a new awareness, a subtle connection forged in vulnerability. Sullivan, slightly drunk on expensive scotch, raised his glass. "To partnerships, business and personal." He grinned at his much younger wife, then at Marcus and Olivia. "Reed, I never thought I'd see the day you'd choose something besides work. Shows character, finding a woman worth prioritizing." Marcus's hand found Olivia's in the firelight. "Some things are worth reconsidering priorities for," he said, his eyes never leaving her face. The moment felt too genuine, too intense. Olivia excused herself, walking toward the lakeshore where moonlight danced across gentle waves. She heard footsteps behind her, but didn't turn. "He's right, you know," Marcus said, stopping beside her. "I never considered anything besides work worth my time. And now?" She kept her gaze on the water. "Now I find myself—" He hesitated, distracted. Something in his tone made her heart race. She turned to face him, finding his expression unusually open, almost vulnerable. "Marcus, Mrs. Reed," Sullivan's booming voice interrupted as he approached, swaying slightly. "You're missing the marshmallows. Tradition demands participation." The moment shattered. Marcus's expression closed again, the professional mask sliding back into place. Later that night, lying beside Marcus in the dark, Olivia stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events. His admission of weakness on the trail, the genuine compliment, the charged moment by the lake. These weren't the actions of someone viewing their arrangement as merely transactional. "You're thinking too loudly," Marcus murmured. "Sorry," she whispered, "just processing today." He was quiet for so long she thought he might have fallen asleep. Then, "Thank you for earlier, on the trail. Anyone would have helped." "No," he said, softly. "They wouldn't have. Most people in my life see what I can provide, not what I might need." Olivia turned toward him, finding his profile in the moonlight filtering through the curtains. "Maybe you've surrounded yourself with the wrong people." "Maybe I have." His hand found hers in the darkness, fingers intertwining. "Maybe that's changing." They fell asleep that way, hands linked in the space between them, a bridge across what had once seemed an uncrossable divide. The remaining days of the retreat brought more revelations. During a partner cooking competition, Olivia discovered Marcus couldn't boil water without disaster, leading to the first genuine laughter they'd shared. In turn, he taught her to sail on the lake, his hands gentle on hers as he demonstrated how to manage the ropes. On their final night, Sullivan announced the merger was effectively settled. "Nothing like seeing a man happy in his personal life. To know he'll be solid in business," he declared, raising a toast to Marcus and Olivia. "You two give an old romantic hope." As they packed to leave the next morning, Olivia realized something fundamental had changed. The thought of returning to their cold, formal existence at the mansion filled her with unexpected sadness. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Marcus asked, catching her staring out the window. "I was just thinking." She hesitated, then decided on honesty. These past few days felt different, less like a performance. His eyes met hers, something unreadable in their depths. Unplanned attachments. The mansion felt different upon their return, smaller somehow, less imposing. Olivia found herself lingering in Marcus's study in the evenings, reading while he worked. Sometimes they talked, discussions ranging from business ethics to favorite childhood memories. Other times, they simply existed in comfortable silence, the wall between them continuing to crumble. One evening, 3 weeks after the retreat, Olivia entered the study to find Marcus staring at an old photograph. "My parents," he explained, without prompting, turning the frame toward her. A stern-faced man stood beside a beautiful woman with sad eyes. Between them, a solemn boy of about 10. "This was taken a month before my mother left." Olivia sat beside him on the leather sofa. "What happened?" "My father happened." His voice remained controlled, but tension lined his face. She endured his controlling nature, his emotional manipulation, his affairs, until she didn't. "She left you behind?" Olivia asked gently. "She tried to take me." His fingers traced the edge of the frame. "My father's lawyers ensured she got nothing, no money, no home, no child. I didn't see her again until after college." "That's why you've built all this," Olivia realized. "The empire, the control." Never be vulnerable, never depend on anyone. He set the photo down. Effective business strategy. Lonely life strategy, she countered softly. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, Marcus leaned forward. Their lips met in a kiss that started tentative but quickly deepened, years of Marcus's restraint dissolving against the warmth of her response. When they separated, breathless, Olivia saw confusion and desire warring in his expression. "This wasn't in the contract," he murmured, his forehead resting against hers. "I won't tell if you won't," she whispered back, and pulled him closer. That night changed everything. The line between pretense and reality blurred completely. They still maintained their public roles, the successful power couple. But now, behind closed doors, something genuine flourished. Marcus began leaving work earlier. Olivia found herself welcomed into parts of his life previously kept separate: strategy meetings for the merger, charity board positions she genuinely cared about, quiet dinners where they talked about everything and nothing. "You seem different," her mother remarked during a hospital visit. Elena Vega looked better than she had in months, color returning to her cheeks as the treatment worked. Happier. "Do I?" Olivia arranged flowers beside the bed, avoiding her mother's perceptive gaze. "Is it still just an arrangement?" Elena asked pointedly. Olivia had told her the truth from the beginning, refusing to lie about something so significant. "It's evolving," Olivia admitted. "Be careful, Mija," her mother warned. "When the contract ends, what happens to your heart?" The question haunted Olivia. Their agreement had 3 months remaining. Neither had mentioned what would happen afterward. The annual Horizon Technologies Charity Gala arrived, the company's most prestigious event. Olivia wore a silver gown that Marcus had specifically chosen, claiming it matched her eyes. As they mingled with Silicon Valley elite, his hand remained at the small of her back, thumb tracing small circles against her spine. "You're magnificent," he whispered during a quiet moment, his eyes sincere. "Everyone here is wondering how I got so lucky." "Careful, Mr. Reed," she teased. "People might think you're actually fond of your contractually obligated wife." Something flashed in his eyes. Would that be so terrible? Before she could respond, a commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A striking woman with flame-red hair entered, immediately commanding the room's focus. Olivia felt Marcus stiffen beside her. "Who is that?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Diane Prescott," he replied, voice tight. "My former fiancée." Diane spotted them immediately, moving through the crowd with practiced grace. "Marcus, darling," she practically purred, air kissing both his cheeks. "It's been too long." "Diane," his tone was clipped. "I wasn't aware you were in town." Last-minute decision. Her gaze shifted to Olivia, assessing. "And this must be the mystery wife everyone's talking about. Enchanted, I'm sure." "Olivia Reed," she introduced herself, extending a hand and meeting the woman's calculated stare with calm dignity. "Lovely to meet you." Diane's perfectly manicured fingers briefly clasped hers. How interesting that Marcus found time for marriage when he was always too busy during our engagement. "Different priorities, I suppose," Olivia replied smoothly. "Indeed." Diane turned back to Marcus. "The Sullivan merger is quite the coup. Everyone's impressed you managed it when Edward has been so traditional about who he does business with." "If you'll excuse us," Marcus said, guiding Olivia away. "Enjoy the gala, Diane." Later, after they'd returned home and Olivia had changed into her nightgown, she found Marcus in his study, nursing a scotch. "You never mentioned a fiancé," she said from the doorway. "It was 3 years ago." He didn't look up. "We were engaged. For 4 months." "What happened?" "She was sleeping with a board member while negotiating a position at our competitor." His voice was flat. "The engagement ended. She took a job in London." Olivia moved closer. And now she's back. Apparently, he finally met her eyes. It doesn't matter, doesn't it? She looked at you like unfinished business. Diane always calculated her moves carefully, he acknowledged. Her return now, with the merger nearly complete, isn't coincidental. Should I be worried? Olivia asked, hating the vulnerability in her question. Marcus set down his glass and pulled her onto his lap. No, he said firmly, kissing her with an intensity that left no room for doubt. What I have with you is more real than anything I ever had with her. The admission should have reassured her. Instead, it underscored the precariousness of their situation. What they had wasn't supposed to be real at all. The following week brought Diane's presence into sharper focus. She appeared at Marcus's office with concerns about intellectual property from their prior collaborations. She reached out to board members. Twice, Olivia answered calls at the mansion, only to have the person hang up after hearing her voice instead of Marcus's. She's circling, Olivia observed over breakfast, having just read a business article quoting Diane about Horizon's future. Let her, Marcus replied, distracted by emails. She can't touch what matters. That afternoon, Olivia visited her mother, now well enough to take short walks around the hospital gardens. As they rounded a corner, Eleanor clutched her arm. Isn't that your husband? Across the garden, Marcus sat on a bench beside Diane, their conversation appearing intense. Neither had noticed Olivia and Eleanor. Let's go back inside, Olivia suggested, a knot forming in her stomach. That evening, when Marcus returned home, Olivia was waiting in the study. How was your day? She asked, keeping her voice neutral. Productive. He loosened his tie. The final merger documents are ready. Sullivan is pleased. And your meeting with Diane? He stilled. You saw that. At the hospital. With my mother. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. She threatened to expose our arrangement to Sullivan unless I gave her what she wants. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. Which is? Chief Strategy Officer position in the merged company, and a reconciliation with me. His jaw tightened. She claims to have proof our marriage is a sham. How would she know that? She doesn't. She's fishing. He moved closer, taking Olivia's hands. But it made me realize how vulnerable we are. If Sullivan learned the truth before the merger closes, everything would fall apart, Olivia finished. The implications clear. His company would suffer. Her mother's treatment might be jeopardized. I won't let that happen, Marcus vowed, squeezing her fingers. I've worked too hard. We've worked too hard. Something in his phrasing caught her attention. For the merger? She asked quietly. His eyes met hers, suddenly intense. For everything we've built. Olivia, what began as a business arrangement has become. His phone rang, Sullivan's name flashing on the screen. With an apologetic glance, Marcus answered. The moment fractured, his attention diverted to business once more. Later that night, lying beside him in what had become their shared bedroom, Olivia stared at the ceiling. His words echoed in her mind. What had they built, exactly? A convincing lie? Or something true growing within the framework of deception? And when the contract ended in less than 3 months, would any of it matter? Beyond the contract, the calendar on Olivia's phone displayed a simple reminder. 30 days. 1 month until their contract expired. 1 month until the carefully constructed world they'd built together was scheduled to dismantle. She deleted the notification with a swipe, trying to ignore the hollow feeling spreading through her chest. The merger had closed successfully last week. Sullivan Enterprises now fully integrated with Horizon Technologies. Marcus had achieved his goal. Her mother's treatments were working remarkably well, with doctors using terms like remission and recovery. Their agreement had served its purpose, so why did the thought of its conclusion feel like mourning? Ms. Olivia? Teresa knocked softly. At the bedroom door. Mr. Reed called. He'll be working late again tonight. Thank you, Teresa. Olivia kept her voice steady, though this marked the third late night this week. Since Diane's threat and the merger's completion, Marcus had retreated into work, their newfound closeness giving way to increasing distance. They still shared meals when he was home, still shared a bed, but something had shifted, a guardedness returning to his manner, as though preparing himself for their inevitable separation. Olivia wandered the mansion restlessly before finding herself in Marcus's study. On his desk sat legal documents she recognized immediately, divorce papers, prepared but unsigned. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages. Everything was meticulously arranged. Division of assets. She would keep the $2 million as agreed, plus a generous additional settlement. Privacy clauses. A joint statement about amicable separation due to growing apart. All the technical details of ending something that was never supposed to be real in the first place. A folded note slipped from between the pages, her name written in Marcus's precise handwriting. She hesitated before opening it. Olivia, these are prepared per our original agreement. Review with your lawyer before signing. I've instructed my attorneys to accommodate any reasonable requests. Marcus, no acknowledgement of what had grown between them. No mention of feelings, of late-night conversations, of moments when pretense had transformed into genuine connection. Just business, as it had always been intended to be. Fighting tears, Olivia replaced the documents and left the study. In their bedroom, she began pulling items from her closet, packing a small overnight bag. Teresa found her 20 minutes later. "Miss Olivia, are you going somewhere?" "Just to stay with my mother for a night or two." She forced a smile. "With her recovery progressing so well, I want to spend time with her. Shall I tell Mr. Reed when he returns?" "Yes, please." Olivia zipped the bag closed. "And Teresa, thank you for everything." The housekeeper studied her face, understanding more than was said. "The house will feel empty without you, Mrs. Reed." At her mother's apartment, maintained throughout their arrangement despite Olivia's absence, Elena immediately sensed something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, setting tea before her daughter. "Nothing happened. That's the problem." Olivia stared into her cup. "The contract ends in a month. Marcus has already prepared the divorce papers." Eleanor sat beside her. "And you were hoping he wouldn't?" "I don't know what I was hoping." Tears finally spilled. "We were supposed to be pretending, Mama. How did I let myself fall in love with him?" "Oh, Mika." Eleanor wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "The heart doesn't always follow the terms we try to set for it. He's pulling away, staying late at work, barely talking to me." Olivia wiped her cheeks. I think Diane might be involved. There are rumors they've been seen together at business functions. Have you asked him? Told him how you feel? What would be the point? The arrangement is ending. That was always the plan." Eleanor took her daughter's hands. "Plans change, Olivia. But only if you're brave enough to change them." 3 days passed with no word from Marcus. Olivia visited her mother's doctors, arranged for home health care after her upcoming discharge, and tried not to check her phone constantly. On the 4th morning, as she prepared breakfast in the apartment's tiny kitchen, a knock came at the door. Marcus stood in the hallway, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. His normally immaculate suit was wrinkled, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and stubble lined his jaw. "You left," he said simply. "I needed space to think." She stepped back, allowing him inside. "And you weren't exactly present lately," he paced. "The small living room. I've been finalizing the transition team for the merger." With Diane, his head snapped up. "What? People are talking, Marcus, about you two reconnecting. That's absurd." Anger flashed in his eyes. "I've been working with her because I have to. The board insisted on keeping her expertise during transition, but there's nothing personal happening. Then why pull away from me? Olivia demanded. Why prepare divorce papers without even discussing it? Why? Because I'm terrified. The words exploded from him, raw and honest. Because in 1 month our contract ends, and you have every right to walk away. Because I've never felt this way about anyone, and I have no idea how to ask you to stay when staying wasn't part of our deal. Olivia stared at him, heart hammering. What are you saying, Marcus? He moved closer, taking her hands. I'm saying I don't want a divorce. I don't want our arrangement to end. His voice softened. I'm saying I love you, Olivia. Not for appearances, not for business. I love who you are. How you challenge me, how you see me, really see me, beyond the wealth and power. You love me, she repeated, afraid to believe, completely. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. I realized it at the retreat, but I've been fighting it, telling myself it wasn't possible, that you were just fulfilling our agreement, that you'd never want to stay once you had what you needed. And the divorce papers. A defense mechanism. Shame flickered across his features. If I prepared for the end, maybe it wouldn't destroy me when you left. Hope bloomed in Olivia's chest, but caution tempered it. What about your beliefs? Never be vulnerable, never depend on anyone. They protected me from pain, but they also kept me from joy. His eyes held hers, more open and vulnerable than she'd ever seen them. You showed me there's more to life than control and success. You made my empty mansion feel like a home. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but before she could respond, another knock came at the door. Elena entered, stopping short at the sight of Marcus. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, looking between them with knowing eyes. I forgot my medication. It's fine, Mama. Olivia wiped her cheeks. Marcus was just asking your daughter to stay married to me, he finished, turning to Elena with newfound determination. Not for a contract or business deal, but because I love her. If you'll give your blessing. Elena studied him carefully. My blessing depends on one thing, Mr. Reed. Will you make my daughter happy, not with money or status, but with love and respect? I'll spend every day trying, he vowed. Elena nodded, satisfaction in her expression. Then you have it. She retrieved her medication from the bathroom and headed back to the door, pausing to kiss Olivia's cheek. Follow your heart, Mija. When they were alone again, Olivia looked up at Marcus. You know this won't be easy. People will question the sudden change in our story. Let them. He cupped her face gently. I don't care what anyone thinks anymore, Olivia. I only care what you think, what you want. I want what I never expected to find in this arrangement, she admitted, finally giving voice to the feelings she'd been fighting. I love you, Marcus, the real you, not the billionaire businessman, but the man who covers me with blankets when I fall asleep reading, who visits my mother's doctors because he cares, who showed me his vulnerabilities on a mountain trail. He drew her closer, relief washing over his features. Is that a yes? Will you stay? Not as my contract wife, but as my partner, my love, my real wife? Yes, she whispered against his lips. But on one condition. Anything. Burn those divorce papers. She smiled through her tears. And never doubt us again. 6 months later, Olivia stood in the garden of what was now truly their home, watching guests gather for the ceremony. White chairs lined the lawn, flowers adorned every surface, and at the center stood a simple arch where they would renew their vows, this time with no contracts, no business arrangements, just love. Her mother, fully recovered and radiant in blue, adjusted Olivia's veil. You look beautiful, Mija. I feel beautiful, Olivia replied, happiness bubbling through her. And terrified and excited, as a bride should. Elena squeezed her hands. Your father would be proud of the woman you've become. Across the garden, Olivia caught sight of Marcus speaking with Edward Sullivan and his wife. He looked up, their eyes meeting across the distance, and the love in his gaze still took her breath away. Teresa approached, carrying a small velvet box. "Mr. Reed asked me to give you this before the ceremony." When Olivia walked down the aisle minutes later, every step carried her further from the desperate woman who had once entered a billionaire's office seeking salvation. That arrangement had saved her mother's life, but it had given Olivia something equally precious, the discovery that love could bloom in the most unlikely soil, that hearts could connect across the widest divides, and that sometimes the most beautiful realities grew from arrangements never meant to be real at all. As she reached Marcus and took his hands, he leaned close to whisper, "No contract this time, just us, for a